Hey guys, Nick here, and welcome to my review of the brand new Netflix and Marvel TV series Luke Cage. Obviously set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe as well as the Netflix universe of characters that include Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and Iron Fist. Ultimately leading up to the Defenders TV show. And here are my thoughts on this brand new show. Obviously, it's picking off like pretty much where Luke Cage left off in Jessica Jones. I do want to preface my review by saying this. The one thing I want to say about this show is that I wish it delved into more of what happened with Luke Cage in Jessica Jones' first season last year. Because other than a couple of quick mentions, they don't talk about Jessica Jones at all. I mean, you hear Trisha's voice doing her radio show, from Jessica Jones. But other than that, we don't see any of Jessica Jones at all. We don't really hear any mention of her. We get not like a direct mention. They mention like her the neck snapping of Kilgrave in last season of Jessica Jones. But overall, nothing else. So that was just one of my few gripes with the show. But overall, I thought this was a really well developed show and gave us a different take on a superhero story, because it's not about a guy wearing a mask. It's not about someone suffering PTSD. It's not about a guy who's just trying to save his city. There's more to that with Luke Cage. And Luke Cage is a guy, obviously, we find out he was tested on while he was falsely sent to prison, and he was, treated by this doctor, and an accident happened that made him pretty much invulnerable. And we see his struggle throughout the series of coming to terms with what happened there, and in terms with his identity as Luke Cage, as well as accepting his past as Carl Lucas. And this entire season, we see him struggle with, what does it mean to be Luke Cage? What does it mean to be, a symbol of hope for the people of Harlem? And I love the Harlem setting because, we see, seasons 1 and 2 of Daredevil and season 1 of Jessica Jones were all like in Hell's Kitchen or within that area. So we finally got to move out of Hell's Kitchen for a bit into Harlem, and obviously the very heavily African American community. So I think especially with the Marvel property, I'm glad to see such a property like this embrace its diversity. And honestly, first of all, the whole premise of having a bulletproof African American in today's society where so many unarmed African American men and women are shot down by cops all the time, it really says something to what the show is trying to say. And I think, again, one of the things I love about it, because it touches on social issues without bashing you over the head with it. It stays relevant while at the same time giving you a great story and great characters and a couple of really, really good villains. And I want to also, before I forget, mention the two villains. Or you can say there are three villains. There's Cottonmouth, who I was led to believe that he was going to be the villain of the series. And obviously, if you guys have not seen Luke Cage, I'm going to spoil some things. So if you guys don't want to be spoiled, I recommend not watching this video until you're done with the show. But, they kill off Cottonmouth like halfway through the series. And the actor who played him, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he did really great. And I love the whole mobster aspect of it. I understand creatively why they would have decided to kill the mobster early, because you didn't want to have a situation where it's similar to Daredevil season 1, where you have this guy behind the scenes controlling everything, and which would have led to a confrontation between him and Luke Cage. But then his cousin Mariah Dillard, played by the actress who she was in Captain America: Civil War playing a different character. She was the one who confronts Tony Stark about her dead son. And we found out she's the one who killed him, and she almost, by the last episode, you come to absolutely hate her, because for a while you just see she's just been a corrupt politician, and I'm like, okay, well this is interesting. She seems like the most morally balanced, considering she's a bad guy. By the end of the show, you hate her, and you hate what happens to her character. Not that when it's like you don't get justice with her character in the way that she gets away with it. And that made me so mad. But also it's ending the season the way it did. Obviously, again, spoiling it for you guys. Luke Cage is being sent back to Seagate for escaping, and we see, their Misty's witness, who was there, who witnessed the murder of Cottonmouth. Shades killed her, and then what else? I mean, and then of course, Mariah Dillard getting away with it. I mean, to have a show end on such a sour note, especially in its first season, I think that's really ballsy, and I think that's really cool creatively. As I was watching it, I was so mad. But obviously, they're setting things up, with the future season, as well as the Defenders, which I think is coming out next year. So obviously, Luke Cage is going to be back. But at the same time, as I'm watching it, all of these things unfold, I just could not stop watching it. It was just such compelling television, and there are times I forgot that it was a comic book show. But then there are the times where throughout the show we see very obvious nods to the comic books. When we see Luke escape Seagate prison, and he still has like the cuffs on and the braces on, and he has that headband on. Obviously, a nod to his look in the comics as Power Man, and the obvious mentions of the Power Man nickname for Luke from Pop early on in the show. And then we also see Diamondback in his weird costume for his final battle with Luke Cage. The final battle I thought was okay. Diamondback is one of my problems with the show, and I'll get to that a little later. But overall, this show, like, between the action, its social commentary, its character development, and just its characters in general, I thought were so well done. The few problems I had with the show, like, they're minuscule compared to how much I love the rest of the show. And, I was instantly hooked watching the show, because the first few episodes, it felt like a very, like, 70s, like, mob vibe, like, it's so hard to describe because the show is so unique, but obviously taking inspiration from things that came in the past, and it just, like, with, like, the 70s-ish music, the Harlem setting, and the dynamic between the characters I thought worked so well, especially when they introduced, Luke's relationship with Pop, and when they killed him off so early on, and then his his relationship, with Chico. I mean, that was subtle, and then he was killed off. And for the first half of the season, just feeling how connected Harlem really felt, and how Harlem really does need a hero. And at least that's what this season of Luke Cage kind of gave that message to me as an audience member. But just overall, I just feel like between everything, this show was such an enjoyment, and just such a great experience for me to watch. And I watched as much as I could in the time I had, because I have work and personal things going on, so I couldn't binge watch it all at once. And right now it's Sunday morning. It's about 3:54 a.m. in the morning, and I just finished the show. And it's my feelings on it, the fact that it's already over for me, it's a weird thing to think about, because it's like it ended on such a sour note that I'm like, I want more, but at the same time, that's the thing about these Netflix shows, is that, like, once you binge them, you have to wait a year until you see them again. But luckily, with the whole Marvel and Netflix deal, they're doing all these shows that next year I think we're gonna be seeing the Defenders. So we're gonna be seeing Daredevil again, and Jessica Jones, and Luke Cage, and then Iron Fist is coming out next year as well. So so it's nice not knowing that I don't have to wait too long to see Luke Cage again as a character, but I need to see more of this story, because obviously the way it ended, I want things to finally go right for Luke, because that's one thing in the season. Like, it seems like everything that could have happened to him that went wrong. But yeah. But one thing that I briefly mentioned earlier was the action in this series, especially when you have a guy who's bulletproof, and you're just like, oh well, they've done that sort of thing with, like, Superman and other characters in the past. And the way they handle it in this show, you see, like, he's really a human character that has powers. If that makes sense. So he's not just like a guy who's going out trying to save the day all the time. He's just trying to do the right thing, and he doesn't always, make the right decision, and he has issues like any other normal person would. So when he comes into a situation with guns hitting him, you feel like it's more of a human going into that situation than it is like a superhero going into that situation. And the way the world around him reacts to his abilities, I think, is very realistic and very, different from what we see like in the Marvel movies or DC movies or TV shows that everyone kind of like lands like, oh, superpowers, but like everyone's like, holy shit, like superpowers. And obviously, like, I think the biggest highlight in terms of action in the show was, you know, that with that warehouse fight in episode 3 where he goes through the congresswoman's or the councilwoman's warehouse, and he's just like taking guys out left and right just to get the money. And I thought that was very reminiscent of, you know, the Daredevil the Daredevil stairway fight scene from season 1, and it was a hallway fight scene in season 1, and it was a stairway and hallway fight in season 2. So it felt very reminiscent of that, and that was really cool. And then in episode 6, when Luke stops the car to save Claire and the detective's life, or at least try to, the way he just smashed that car, that was so like visually cool. But like I said, no show is perfect, and my biggest issue with the show was the introduction of Diamondback and how that was poor. In my opinion, it was kind of poorly handled, because you had Cottonmouth essentially be the villain of the show for the first half of that season. We had no real idea that there was someone else behind the scenes, and they briefly mentioned it, but overall, like, you didn't get the feeling that, oh, there's more going on than what's at face level or face value. And when they introduced Diamondback, it's like, wait, huh? And one thing about Diamondback, you never really understood why he was trying to just kill Luke. And you get that, yeah, they're half brothers, and Diamondback was, you know, a bastard child because he was born out of wedlock, and it was his dad, and their dad cheated on, you know, the whole story with Diamondback is like, you're like, okay, that kind of makes sense. When they grew up being best friends, like, they never really said what tore them apart, what made him hate Luke, and why he set up Luke, and there's certain things that didn't really make sense for me. And the acting, sometimes it was good, like, he was intimidating for the most part, in terms of introduction, and just as his purpose in the show felt like it was really underwhelming for me. So by the time he came around, I'm like, wait, what? Like, we already had, you know, we had Mariah Dillard, we had Cottonmouth, and now Diamondback too, and now he is trying to take over their gang or empire. I don't know. I was so confused for a bit, and then his final battle with Luke, like I said, it was cool to watch, but his costume kind of made, I mean, I guess they kind of made sense, but it looked ridiculous. Like, it looked like out of a comic book, and it's like, I understand when the show is doing its best to, you know, honor its comic book history, and giving us those nods to the comics. Like, you don't have to be so on the nose about it, because some things, like, don't translate well. That's why, like, when Luke was escaping, like, his Power Man look in that instance was fine, because he was escaping prison, so that's why he has all this stuff. He's not going to run around wearing that stuff, because it looks ridiculous. I mean, the Avengers can get away with it because they make it look, like, more militaristic and make everything look a little more realistic, but especially with Luke Cage and his Power Man alter ego, I feel like that, like certain things from that, from those comics don't translate well. So the look of Diamondback didn't translate well to me, but it was cool seeing, like, all the nods to, you know, Hammer Industries and Justin Hammer from Iron Man 2, and the mention of blatantly mentioning Tony Stark, and just obviously letting us know as audience members that obviously this takes place in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but at the same time not relying on the fact that it's set in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like, to me, I completely forget that it's even a superhero show because of how good it is. And overall, I was really satisfied. And other than Diamondback, I think everyone did a great job. Even Misty Knight, a character who I was very hit or miss with in the beginning, by the end, like, I really felt sorry for her and everything that she went through, especially, you know, with Diamondback trying to kill her initially, and then finding out about, you know, her witness being killed. I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but just overall, I felt like her character, and I'm so happy that, obviously, you know, they start her in the series with her hooking up with Luke, but I'm so happy that that didn't become just she was another romantic interest. And I get so tired of that because, you know, if you guys watch any of my videos, for any of you who watch, like, my Arrow reviews or Flash reviews or any of that kind of stuff, you guys know that I hate when female characters are brought into shows to just be a love interest. And she was so much more than she was her own character. She had her own struggles without Luke, and she came around as a character. She had good character development, at least in my opinion. So by the time the series ended, or the season ended, I thought she was really a well-developed character. So I was really happy to see that, considering I didn't have the best of expectations when the show started, when it came to her character. And then, of course, seeing Claire Temple, the one character from all these Netflix shows, it's been kind of like, you know, the continuing thread through all of them. You know, she was introduced in Daredevil season 1. She had a brief relationship with Matt, and then she goes into the end of Jessica Jones season 1, where she saves Luke's life for the first time. And now we see her play probably the biggest role she's played since Daredevil, and obviously, you know, she's there for Luke, just as she was there for Jessica and Matt, and obviously there's more to her in this show because they flesh her out a little more. They give us a little more of her family backstory, as well as fleshing out her relationship with Luke and how it's not just, obviously, like, they don't even make it a romantic relationship. Obviously there's romantic tension there, but there's definitely a lot more to that. So I was really happy to see Rosario Dawson back, and just overall, I was thoroughly pleased by this show, and I'm looking forward to seeing Luke Cage again on the small screen. I'm super looking forward to Defenders. Iron Fist, we'll see how that goes. I mean, I'm gonna watch it. I'm gonna binge it. I'm gonna do a review for it, like I have with all these other Netflix shows. But we'll see. I mean, who knows what's gonna happen in that time. So overall, again, I really enjoyed Luke Cage season 1. If you guys haven't watched it and you just spoiled yourself, go out and watch it for yourself. You really need to experience it for yourself, and maybe we can differ on our opinions. You guys might like the show more than I did. You guys might have liked the show less than me. Let me know and sign your thoughts in the comments below. Give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button. I upload content all the time. I review, you know, most of the other superhero shows on TV right now, between Flash, Arrow. Actually, no. Scratch that, I don't watch Arrow anymore, so I don't review that. So Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, I review Star Wars Rebels, I have movie reviews and trailer reviews all up on my channel as well if you guys want to check those out. So that's going to be it for me. So until next time, guys, have a good one.